What's up, everybody? It's CMP with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com, and today I'm going to be going over, am I switching to live? And the short answer is no, I'm not switching to live. I'm using live because I enjoy the fact that there's a real DAW, not like Machine. Machine isn't a DAW. Just forget the fact that it's on a computer. And you guys use Machine, you're like, it's a DAW, it's not a fucking DAW, it's an instrument. The same way the Phantom was an instrument and it had a sequencer on it. It's the same way Machine is an instrument that has a sequencer attached to it, except this sequencer is on a computer. I know it just blows you guys' mind. But the thing is I, after I plugged my Machine back up, I bought the Jam, and I really enjoyed that 8x8 pad workflow and the arrangement and stuff like that. I got more and more curious about the push, and I have been watching the push for a while. I didn't want to buy the first one and kind of dive into it because I knew that there would be a second one that Ableton produced on its own, and I was really looking forward to that. And man, push, I can't say enough good things about it, and it's my second, going on my third week using it, and it's just once you understand the vocabulary of live, it's really intuitive. Now, the pros about live for me obviously is the push controller. I love the fact that I have my mastering chain set up. I can navigate to it on the push. I have the encoders to change the parameters of my compressors, my limiters, the infected mushroom pusher. I don't have to map anything. All of the names of the controls are already there. It's easy to go through. It makes me feel like I'm making music as opposed to programming it, and that is really important to me, instead of looking at the screen and trying to pay attention to what I'm listening to, because that, I don't care what anybody says, that it causes a disconnect. Being able, just looking at the encoders and using like hand-ear coordination, for me, is just a much better workflow. I make different decisions based on what I hear as opposed to what I see, like in a gain reduction meter or something like that. And that's kind of a trap that I've fallen into, and this piece of hardware is allowing me to get out of that. The next thing that I really like about live is the simpler plugin, and it kind of speaks to what I'm doing in live, where I'm not focusing on VSTs. I'm not trying to compose tracks from scratch. I'm taking samples and sampling, because I didn't like sampling before, because I don't like the idea of listening to music to make music. I think that's a waste of time. It works for some people and there's an art to it, but for me personally, it's a waste of my time. So with the advent of like Kingsway libraries and everybody who came after Frank Dukes and the Splice website, being able to just get a hold of these royalty-free samples and do what you want with them and still make music that is sample based, with that same adding the grid and just adding that sampled rhythm to hip-hop creations, it's really exciting. It's a really exciting time to be a sample-based producer. I want to be a part of that, and I messed around with it Machine, and it's much better in Ableton, again, because of the controller. Studio One, I have no desire to work into Impact. I think it's a horrible stock VST, which brings me to the other strength of live, which is just their stock VSTs in all. They're better. They're up there with they're up there with Logic, in my opinion, as far as the stock VSTs. Studio One, all the stuff that they make is serviceable. I make amazing music in Studio One. I've placed I've major placements with stuff that I've done in Studio One. Studio One doesn't like sound bad or anything. It's just that for this music that I'm focusing on making now, that's just super fun for me to make, it's just really easier to use Ableton. I'm taking a more minimalistic approach, samples, drums, maybe a synth on top, but that's it. Now, on the other hand, in Studio One, if I need to mix a client session, I'm not dumping that into Ableton. No way. The mixer layout in Studio One is more conducive to a mixing mentality thought process. Nothing's convoluted. It's a console. It is built and updated and engineered with like the Pro Tools type of audio user in mind. But just with improvements to make it less convoluted than Pro Tools, which is what I really like. The next thing I really love about Studio One that Live can't get near is the piano roll. The piano roll in Live is boo-boo, bro. Like, it is trash. It is very rudimentary. I don't know how you're on version 9 of your software and your piano roll is just that basic. The next thing that I really enjoy about Studio One is the ease of stem bouncing. How you have the choice between either tracks or channels. In Ableton, you have to bounce all of the tracks on your session. So, for example, one of my I forget your name, dude, but one of my dudes in the comments has been on my ass about, yo, use the drum racks. They're amazing. So fuck it. I went and created some drum racks for my template, and it's great because now I can quickly browse through these drum sounds and everything, and they're always up on my template. But then I stem out every one of my beats. It's part of my workflow because I sell exclusives. So if you don't sell no exclusives and you don't bounce no stems, drum racks are amazing. But if you put 50 kicks on a drum rack, you only use one of them. Now you got to go through another step just to bounce the stems. Whereas in Studio One, if there's a channel that hasn't been used and you click export all stems, it automatically knows, okay, I see this channel that doesn't have a signal going through it. We're not going to bounce that one. So again, just another example of how it's a more audio based linear program. Studio One also has VST3 support, which is cool because a bunch of my VSTs are VST3. But then at the same time, it's cool that Ableton doesn't, because now my choices are limited in the DAW, which lends itself to a more minimalistic approach, which is more creative. And I know I'm probably making some of you guys throw up who haven't been used to my videos, who are coming to watch Ableton versus Studio One debate, because you're like, Ableton minimalistic, but that's the thing. You can use any DAW to inspire what it inspires in you. I know you could do super complicated things with Ableton Live, but I find the power of that DAW is stripping it down to do less. The next thing that really kind of drove me crazy and disappointed me was, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but Ableton doesn't have automation snap to grid, and that's annoying. Studio One definitely gets the point in the column for that thing, as well as I just like Studio One's automation better. Just being able to right click on any parameter and it just popping up menu like, hey bro, you want to automate that? Like, no menu diving, very tactile. Boom. Being able to detach the mixer is also cool. And then the number one thing that Studio One has pretty much everyone beat on right now is the new low Z feature. Just being able to run your DAW at like a block size of 2048 and still be able to select one instrument to be latency free is amazing. So in short, for a minimal sample-based workflow, I'm gonna be just more inclined to use Live because it puts me in that mentality and it gives me a certain vibe. And then for a more I don't know a good synonym for it, but just for a more complex type of production, which I know Live people are fucking freaking out right now, but for something that requires a lot more VSTs and just something that's more piano roll intensive, there you go, something that's more piano roll centric and intensive, I'm gonna go to Studio One because I don't want to be bothered with creating a bunch of scales and then folding the keys and then and I know you can save them, but it's a click of a button on Studio One. It's a step that I never have to do if I use Studio One. So that's very cool. So anyway, yeah, am I leaving Studio One? No, I'm not leaving Studio One, and that's like, it's just a weird thing to my mentality, because you know, everything in America is us versus them. You know, you're either old head or you're young head. You're either Democrat or you're Republican. You're black or you're white. You know, there's no in between. And a DAW is a DAW, dude. It's a tool to make something. I have two different things I want to make. I have two different tools. So this is CMP with Craftmaster Production Studio 1 Tutorials.com. Keep it simple, don't be basic, and we'll see you on the next one.